Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to episode 17 of Takeaways. My name is Patrick Searcy. I'm Director of Marketing for ALN Apartment Data, and I'm joined with the star of the show, Senior Market Analyst Jordan Brooks, who's now in Florida. Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Patrick. Getting settled in Tampa, so it's going well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's the end of the year. Before we get started today, though, I did want to say that we want to wish all of our viewers a happy holidays and a very happy new year. We're super excited about everything we got in store for 2022. We'll share more details, obviously, as time goes by, but we got some really cool stuff in the works. Now that everything's kind of settled in for us, with Jordan moving and all this, it's going to be great. But back here in the present, the article that we're talking about is, despite challenges, 2021 deliveries already well beyond recent years. So, Jordan, talk to us about new supply on a national level, and talk to us about what markets have really stood out while you were doing this research.
So on the national level, in terms of new units delivered, US we're already at about 325,000 new units, and that's through the end of November. Comparing that to previous years for the full years, the closest year was actually last year with about 310,000 new units. Before that, going back to 2019, 2018, or 2017, none of those years cracked 300,000. They were close, but just below 300,000 new units. So, this has been a pretty sizable uptick in new supply. When we factor in what we expect to get in December, we could see, something around a 10% jump in new units compared to even last year, which again was already a very active year. So very active on the new supply front. And then at the market level, kind of the usual suspects in terms of most deliveries. We're talking about Dallas Fort Worth with more than 25,000 new units this year. Houston and Austin were also in the top 5. And then New York City metro area and DC. Those were the top 5 markets, not necessarily in that order. But so kind of, the markets that we typically expect to see at the top of the list. But when you get down to looking at markets on a percentage basis, so what percentage of the existing multifamily stock do the new units represent? There we have seen some change. We did a pipeline check-in earlier this year. I think that was maybe the February newsletter. And we were talking about a lot of Florida and Texas markets on a percentage basis. And those states are still well represented around the top of the list, but some new markets kind of push them down from the very top. And so, we're talking about areas like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Boise, Idaho. Some of those is still a lot of Sunbelt markets, but a little bit more variety as opposed to earlier in the year when it was a lot of Florida and Texas at the top.
Well, let's shift from delivered to upcoming new supply. Were there any major changes in the data from earlier this year or compared to the market leaders in terms of new units delivered?
There were some shifts. Again, in terms of just aggregate units, it's the markets you generally think would be near the top. One, though, that stood out was Miami. Miami is in the top 10 of markets in terms of units under construction, and it's also the top market on a percentage basis. So for units under construction in Miami, those units account for more than 20% of the existing stock of the market. So a lot of activity going on in Miami right now. And then again, some of the markets I just mentioned, Myrtle Beach is up there. Boise, of course, is up there. That's an area that's really led the nation in population growth recently. So that's really no surprise. And then another market was Huntsville, Alabama, actually, which was on a percentage basis right there at the top in terms of upcoming new supply.
Well, you mentioned near the end of the article some details about population change and trends that were strengthened by the pandemic relating to new construction. Can you flesh that out for us just a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, if you look at population and migration trends, really going back to the beginning of last decade, what you see in the COVID era now is really not so much a shift in those trends as an accentuation or strengthening of those trends. So what we're really talking about is sort of the Mountain West and the Sun Belt being the main regions where population growth is relatively strong. And then areas like Illinois, New York, California, West Virginia, losing population. And so when we kind of graphed onto that the new construction data, you kind of see, for the most part, what you would expect to see. Again, Boise, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami. These markets are adding a lot of new units, and these are markets that are growing in terms of population. A couple of sort of exceptions to that, though, would be the New York metro area and the LA metro area. These are areas that have sort of been on a negative trajectory in terms of population growth for a few years now. Again, this is predating COVID, and yet they're still, of course, at the top of the list of either new units added or units under construction. And of course, that does make sense. I mean, these areas, even though they're losing people, are still arguably overpopulated, right? So there's plenty of people to go around. And then another example on the other side of the coin would be my new home, Tampa, where it's a high growth market in a high growth state in terms of population, but barely cracks the top 20 in terms of upcoming new supply. So again, you can kind of graph the population growth onto the construction data and see a lot of alignment, but there are some areas of discongruity.
So now that we're hitting the end of the year, and then in turn the beginning of the new, what's next for you?
Well, got a little bit of a slowdown in speaking engagements. So I think right now nothing on the calendar, in fact, for January, which I won't complain too much, but it's going to be picking up pretty soon after that. And so we're going to be spending a lot more time with the blog. We're going to have some great content going up, kind of looking back at some of the trends that emerged in the data for 2021, look forward a little bit to 2022. And so viewers of that of this can be on the lookout at alndata.com/blog for the new content that we're going to have going up.
And we post all those articles on our social media, and you can follow us on Twitter at ALN APT Data. You can also search for ALN Apartment Data on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And you can also click that subscribe and hit the bell notification. That way you don't miss any new content that we put out on our YouTube channel. Jordan, thank you so much for Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll leave that in. Why not? It's the end of the year. It's fun.
Holiday episode.
Yeah, holiday episode, the fun episode. So Jordan, we'll leave that in. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to talking with you again in 2022.
See you next year, Patrick, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.
Maybe we should start each video with a dad joke. Just lighten the mood.
Yeah, okay.
And we're going to continue putting new content up there, looking at some different markets around the country that have either done particularly well this year or particularly not well this year.
I just can't talk today. Hi, everyone. All right.
Just
everyone.
Real quick.
Yeah. And now I can hear my kid cry. All right. So let's.
Well, hey, at least we've got that first one to fall back on, if nothing else. I see it.
See how many
confirmed recording. I have a good feeling about this. I think we're going to do it in one take. Yeah. All right, we got this. We got this. I need flashcards, but I can't even see, so that wouldn't even help me. Okay. You doing all right?
Okay. You have something to add to that?
I sure do.
Good. All right, here we go.
What's this called again? Takeaways.
What was your final kind of thoughts on what were your? I'm going to start this question over again.
I think that went pretty well.
Boom. Hope that lint wasn't on my shoulder the whole time.